You're walking the stone corridors of the Alcázar of Madrid. It's 1665. The summer air is suffocating, thick with incense, sweat, and the metallic sting of blood. From behind massive oak doors you hear it, the tortured gasps of a woman in childbirth. But this is no ordinary birth. What's being born isn't hope. It's the slow, final gasp of a dying empire. Behind those doors lies Queen Mariana of Austria. Her body is racked with pain, laboring to deliver a child who is meant to preserve Spain's most powerful dynasty, the Habsburgs. But the boy that emerges, Charles II, is not a symbol of strength. He is the physical manifestation of over 200 years of royal inbreeding. This is not just a story of a cursed king. It's the dark tale of how power, incest, and blind faith in divine right can twist a bloodline and an empire into ruin. The Habsburgs ruled Europe for centuries. Spain, Austria, the Holy Roman Empire, all under one banner. But their obsession with keeping blood pure turned their family tree into a closed loop of cousins, uncles, nieces, and siblings. The result? Children with enormous jaws, collapsed lungs, club feet. Madness. Death in infancy. And finally, Charles II, the worst product of all. He was born with the Habsburg jaw so exaggerated that he couldn't chew food. He had developmental delays so severe he couldn't walk until age 4 or speak until nearly 8. He drooled constantly. He was impotent, intellectually impaired, and deeply superstitious. Told daily he was bewitched. But the truth was worse than witchcraft. Charles was not cursed. He was engineered by his own bloodline. Charles II's father died shortly after his birth. His mother, Queen Mariana, ruled in his place. But her power was fragile. Factions within the Spanish court conspired against each other, while Europe circled like vultures, waiting for the fall. Charles's court turned to exorcisms, bleedings, and miracle workers, hoping to cure the king. Priests blamed demons. Doctors blamed his organs. But no one dared speak the obvious. This boy should never have been born. He was married twice, to women chosen more for politics than compatibility. Neither union produced children. Rumors swirled that he was so malformed he couldn't perform sexually at all. The dynasty's future now depended on a king who couldn't eat, think, or breed. Charles was never a ruler. He was a living relic, propped up on a throne while others waged war in his name. By his 30s, he was exhausted, sick, and tormented by paranoia. He believed enemies were casting spells on him. Every bodily function, bowel movements, erections, appetite, was treated like a matter of state. When Charles died in 1700 at age 38, he left no heir. His death triggered the War of Spanish Succession, a continent-wide conflict that killed hundreds of thousands. But more than that, it ended the Spanish Habsburg line. The dynasty that once ruled half the known world had self-destructed, not by sword or cannon, but by its own arrogance and incestuous pride. We remember Charles II as a footnote, a strange, sad king. But his story is a warning. He is the embodiment of a political class so convinced of its divinity that it ignored nature, science, and sanity. The royal portraits of him were often altered, his jaw softened, his eyes sharpened. But the truth couldn't be painted over. Charles was the ghost of a dynasty that collapsed under the weight of its own purity. Historians now study his DNA, confirming just how extreme the inbreeding was. One study shows his inbreeding coefficient was higher than if his parents had been brother and sister. And yet, he was given a crown. His life, his suffering, was not the result of bad luck. It was the result of a ruling class terrified of dilution, obsessed with control, and blind to consequence. A stone chamber choked with the scent of incense and sweat. Candles flicker, casting warped shadows across the face of a queen wrapped in heavy cloth. Her skin pale, her eyes sharp, her body cloaked not in silk, but in filth. She hasn't bathed in years, not because she can't, but because she believes it would damn her soul. This is the untold truth behind Queen Isabella of Castile, the holy sovereign who ruled an empire with blood and faith, yet feared a simple bath more than war itself. Queen Isabella is remembered as a unifier of Spain, the architect of the Reconquista, and the devout ruler who unleashed the Spanish Inquisition. But hidden beneath the crown and crimson robe lies a disturbing legend, that she vowed never to change her undergarments until Granada, then under Muslim rule, was conquered. Years passed, wars were fought, kingdoms rose and fell, but the Queen remained unbathed. According to chroniclers, Isabella wore the same linen shift day and night. No washings, no changes, just layer upon layer of filth, devotion and fear. When she finally died, her body was said to be so decayed that the cloth had fused to her skin. Is this legend literal, symbolic? Perhaps both. But either way, the truth it reveals is more chilling than the myth. Isabella was born in 1451 into a world aflame with war and political treachery. Spain was fractured into warring kingdoms, torn between Christian rule and centuries of Muslim governance. From a young age, Isabella was taught that her purpose was not pleasure, not even peace, but purification. Under the strict eye of her religious tutors, Isabella internalized a core belief. The body is sinful. Comfort, luxury, even bathing were dangerous temptations. She began to see water not as cleansing, but corrupting. To clean the body was to risk cleaning away piety. And so, she chose to remain dirty as an offering to God. The siege of Granada was not just a military campaign, it was a spiritual war. Isabella, alongside King Ferdinand, sought to reclaim the last Muslim stronghold in Iberia. But it wasn't just land she wanted. She wanted divine proof that her suffering, her dirt, was holy. As the siege dragged on for years, she kept her vow. Chroniclers wrote of her stench, her soiled garments, her open wounds beneath the fabric. To her, this was martyrdom. When Granada finally fell in 1492, it was not just a military triumph, it was the fulfillment of a grotesque, sacred pact between Queen and God. Isabella's personal habits weren't just private decisions, they were tools of domination. She didn't merely live in filth, she ruled with it. Her refusal to bathe became a model of female piety. Noblewomen began to mimic her. Confessors preached the dangers of soap and water. Bathhouses, once common across Spain, began to close under royal suspicion. Cleanliness became heresy. The Queen's dirtiness spread like doctrine, infecting a kingdom with the belief that physical rot equaled spiritual purity. At the height of her reign, Isabella unleashed the Spanish Inquisition. Heresy, blasphemy, and even cleanliness became reasons for arrest. Moors and Jews were particularly targeted, many of whom valued hygiene deeply. Their clean homes, regular baths, and perfumed rituals became marks of suspicion. To be clean was to be unchristian. To be unwashed was to be loyal to the crown. The irony is breathtaking. While heretics were burned for using scented oils, the Queen herself sat on a throne of festering cloth, her skin peeling beneath decades of sanctified filth. What kind of mind chooses rot over relief? Isabella's psychology reveals a deep spiritual obsession, where faith eclipses reason and penance becomes performance. She believed her suffering could save her soul and her kingdom. But this obsession bled into madness. Letters reveal she feared mirrors, avoided sunlight, refused medical care. She wasn't just dirty, she was haunted. By sin, by death, by the idea that a single drop of soap could open the gates of hell. Eyewitnesses describe her bed as a nest of rags soaked with sweat, urine and pus. Servants changed straw beneath her mattress, not linens. Her clothes, never washed, grew stiff and yellow. She carried relics, bones of saints, splinters of the true cross, next to festering sores. She prayed for hours in suffocating chambers, surrounded by incense, masking the stench of decay. Every corner of her palace reeked of power and rot. But no one dared speak. Because that stench, it was the smell of holy royalty. After her death, rumors spread that her body was barely recognizable. Her undergarments had fused to her flesh, her skin peeled away with the cloth. Her tomb, once opened decades later, confirmed the gruesome decay. But was it all true? Or was it a myth invented by supporters to sanctify her suffering, or by enemies to demonize her? Perhaps the truth doesn't lie in the linens. Perhaps it lies in a darker truth, that a queen, in her obsession with purity, created a kingdom of rot, repression, and religious hysteria. Even after her death, Isabella's influence lingered. The Spanish Empire grew, conquering lands, killing natives, and spreading her version of Catholicism. Cleanliness remained suspect. Hygiene became sacrilegious. Women were taught to stink in silence. Men whipped themselves instead of washing. Entire generations feared their own flesh, all because one woman believed her body was a battlefield, and filth was her armor. Today, Queen Isabella is often remembered as a saint, a mother of Spain. Statues honor her. Streets bear her name. But the clean truth is this: she wasn't just a queen. She was a fanatic, a ruler who weaponized decay, a woman who wore her filth like a crown and demanded the world worship it. Her myth isn't about hygiene, it's about power, about how belief, left unchecked, can rot a body, and a kingdom